May all beings be at peace. May all beings be free of suffering. And may all beings remember who they are. I wonder what happened to our angels. I wonder what happened to us asking for help. I wonder what happened to make us think that we were the center of the universe. And somehow or another we're not touched and blessed by all these other beings that have bodies and don't have bodies. How we somehow invented this state of separation, aloneness, loneliness, isolation. Years ago, I was in a hospital waiting room, waiting for my father to make his transition. We're in a little country town called Rhinebeck, New York. My mother was downstairs having a cup of coffee or a cigarette, I think, and I was alone in the waiting room with my nose buried in a 5-year-old ladies' home journal, I think. Without any warning, the door opened and a little girl came in wheeling a wheelchair. She had a little teddy bear in the wheelchair. And I am such a pleading introvert that normally I just would have pretended that I didn't see her, because I was wrapped up in my own grief, my own waiting. But I didn't. I looked up, put my magazine down, and looked at this little girl who was probably about 5 or 6 years old. Said, "Hi. How are you?" She said hi back. I said, "What's your name?" She said, "My name is Missy." And Missy sounded like she had a cleft palate. And I'm not sure whether that's why she was in the hospital or not. We carried on a nice little conversation for a while until my mother got there, and Mom loved kids. And they had their own little conversation about teddy bears and dolls' dresses and things like that only a mother and a 6-year-old could understand. You know, in the Gospels, it seems like the major message is the one of loving and loving one another. But there's another theme that goes all the way through. Number of quotations, a number of statements, number of reinforcements of a particular idea, a particular belief. And that is not only that you are loved, not only can you love, not only are you the recipient of unconditional love, but you are never alone. Never. Time and time again, in different ways, that message is expressed time again. And yet how easily I forget. You know, as children, I remember in grade school, this is sort of a funny thing. You all knew that I grew up Catholic grade school. One of the things we did, I was first or second grade, I remember, I think, that we were supposed to bring a handkerchief with us to school, or a napkin or Kleenex or something of the sort. And you were to put it on one side of your seat, one side of your desk, because that's where your guardian angel sat. Of course, I got very grown up all of a sudden, and that was for kids. So how quickly I forgot about my angels. They kind of went to the way of the Easter Bunny. And then I thought a little bit later on in my life, when things became a little bit more spiritual in some ways, and in some ways a little bit more painful. How sad that I lost contact with these beings that are all around. One of my teachers likes to say, there are tons, scads of angels just hanging around waiting for you to ask them for help. And part of me thinks that sounds so childish. And yet another part of me says, oh, thank God. Because I don't know about you, but there's certainly moments in my life that I could use all the help I can. But you have to ask. That's the thing, we have free will. And angels don't come in, or guides, or whatever you want to call them, these supernatural beings don't come into your realm of space and time until you ask them to. So to be part of that life, you have to invite them in. But I forget that too. And then I look at how lonely and how isolated we have become. Not just because of a pandemic, but because of the way we live our lives. And we wonder why we have such a difficult time believing in a God that we can't see. We can't even believe in our brothers and sisters that are like beings that are gathered around us, that we can't see them. The Dalai Lama said that, your problem in the Western world is that you try to fill your spirituality with material things. It doesn't work. Because you don't realize what else is going on both within you and around you. And we learn separateness. We are taught separateness. We learn to believe it. Our whole system of society is based on separateness. All of our advertising is how to be better than or different than somebody else. It's all about personality. It's all about ego consciousness. Never about my soul and my spirit. We've got so much stuff. And we're dying of loneliness. And there are beings around us all the time waiting for us to ask to be healed, to be helped, to be touched. Mother Teresa once said, the reason you are not at peace is because you have forgotten we belong to one another. We belong to one another. Can you feel that? You can feel it in the emptiness of our hearts sometimes. What is it that we're yearning for, and we fill it up with food, or with candy, or with ice cream, or with relationships that don't last? What is it really that our heart is looking for? Your heart craves, my heart craves. To rest in the arms of an angel? Why not? Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. Give you rest. As simple as that. But something is happening here. In the last 20, 30, 40 years, it seems like a long time, but it really isn't. Not for an old man like me, anyway. But it's starting about the 1980s, well, a little bit before that with Edgar Cayce, but really something that caught on with sort of mainstream people in spirituality around, the Course in Miracles evolved around the 80s, late 70s, 80s. And then all of a sudden, all of this stuff started happening. We started getting all of Abraham and this guy and that guy. There was all sorts of what we call channeled information. And we resonated with that, not because it came from someplace else, but because it touched us. And then we realized, well, this is coming from a non-physical source. Even though it comes manifest in a book or something like that, this is coming from a place that none of us probably were even aware of before, or if we were, it was over there that's airy fairyland. And then in some of the books that I'm using right now in some of my classes that I'm teaching, by Paul Selig and what he calls the guides. this group of non-corporeal beings who are dictating this particular work or all of these books and these workshops and things, they said, we're here to help you because this is part of our trip. Our trip is our relationship with you, and we're to help you on your journey by raising your vibration, by doing also. And you know, I had an image in my mind when I started thinking about this, when I started teaching this. I came across an image of an Olympic sport called curling. And if you're familiar, it's sort of an advanced form of shuffleboard, okay, where you have this stone that you roll on the ice, and you roll it into this circle that's scored with different points. But one of the odd things about it is that part of your team, you're the one who pitches the stone, but part of your team is made up by two other people who have these brooms, these little brooms, and they're sweeping like crazy in front of this stone to get rid of any debris that might be in its way, but also sort of soften and melt the ice so it moves in the proper direction. What I became aware of is that's kind of what the guides do. Guides don't touch you, don't push you forward. You're the stone that's moving forward. And if you ask them to, they're sweeping like crazy in front of you so you get to where you need to go. How many times have you or I been lifted out of a depression, a really down place, or a real struggling place, somehow or another lifted out? Where do you think that comes from? Sometimes I know that might be a monk who's 2,000 miles away who's praying for me, but there are a lot of times when that happens because I have been, sometimes without even thinking about it, I have been in the arms of an angel. So have you. And what we're about here this particular Sunday morning is not to deny that, not to throw that away, not to make that an exceptional circumstance, because it's not. It's an event that can happen any moment, any time. All we have to do is ask. I am here for you. It is that deepest truth that we are all connected with one another. We begin to realize, when we realize that, we begin to realize, well, you know, I can ask for help any moment. I don't have to do, first of all, I can't do it all by myself, but I don't have to do it all by myself. What a relief. It's not just the journey of my personality self, it's the journey of my soul. I don't have to do this all by myself. I can let go. I can ask for help. That song is so touching because here's this person obviously in pain, in difficulty. And recognizing that I can, the angel is not going to solve my situation necessarily, but is going to give me the strength and the comfort I might need to be able to face or do whatever it is I need to do. If it's grieving or if it's letting go, whatever form that might happen to take. I am not alone. I can let go. Do I have to wait to be in a whole lot of pain before I can let go? Or can I just recognize I could see peace instead of this? I could have had a V8. I could ask for help. I could do this differently. I don't have to do it all by myself. I can't do it all by myself, but I certainly don't even have to try. And then it's silly to think that all of this help that we're talking about just happens to come from an outside source. It's not outside of you, it's connected to you. Just as you are connected with the Christ consciousness, with what the Buddhists might call the Buddha mind. When you are connected to what we sometimes refer to as that wee small voice inside. How often do we stop just to listen to that? And it can speak to you in words, it can also speak to you in silence. It can speak to you in the openness of love or compassion, or just giving you the experience somehow or another deep within your own being that you are not alone. Can I be open to that? That's all we have to do. We ask for help and we be open to the help, and it's there. None of us would be here on a Sunday morning unless that was there sometime in our lives. Now we're just being encouraged to recognize it's always there. It's not just there when you're in pain. It's not just, you don't have to wait until you need help. I don't have to wait until I really, really need to be loved to ask somebody to love me. What would it be like if I just recognized, I'm just a human being who is walking this path, who is struggling along like everybody else, and it would be really nice if I could recognize how loved I am at this moment. And then take it in. See, that's another thing. We can even ask for help, but sometimes we don't even take it in. I don't know why, but I don't. Help me, help me, help me, help me. Then I'm over here doing whatever it is I'm asking for help. Let me be open to that truth. Let me be open to that wee small voice. Let me be open to that Christ consciousness. Let me be open to that Buddha mind. And it's happening all around, everywhere, everything. Carl Jung said, God is all that happens to me, all that crosses my path that is filled with surprise, for which I am totally unprepared for. It's there. It's still there. What's more important in your life and my life, politics or prayer? Which has more power? Here was my mother and I in this hospital waiting room, talking to a little girl with a teddy bear in her wheelchair. Grieving, and yet somehow experiencing the presence of an angel. Because angels can take many, many different forms. Sometimes they can be people. Sometimes they can be an open door. Sometimes they can be a flower in a wall. And after we had about a 5-minute talk with Missy, the nurse came into the waiting room. I like to call her Nurse Ratchet, okay, and kind of read Missy the riot act about being outside of her room and doing whatever it was she was doing. And Missy just very comfortably picked up her little teddy bear and sat in a wheelchair, put it in her lap. The nurse wheeled her out. Never saw her again. But you can't tell me that wasn't an angel. Each one of us probably has many, many life experiences that if we were to look at them honestly, know that they could not have happened unless there was supernatural help around. Unless that happened from some way, somehow, being outside, or not outside of ourselves, but outside of our common knowledge of how things happen. I would encourage us this morning or this afternoon to call back some of those experiences, to recognize the truth of them, not in the past so much, but to recognize the truth of them within your being right now. One of my favorite Old Testament stories is about Jacob and the angel. You never hear the beginning of the story, so I'm not quite sure how it began, but Jacob got into a wrestling match with an angel. He didn't really know what or who this was at first, but they were tussling all night long, so at it that Jacob got his hip knocked out. Always walked with a limp a little bit later on. When the sun started coming up, he realized he was wrestling with an angel, and the angel essentially said, "I got to go now, man." And Jacob said this, "I will not go until you bless me. I will not let go until you bless me." What would it be like if we said that to the angels around us this morning? I will not let you go until you bless me. And you know what's so beautiful? I don't know what's going on with you, but I know what's going on with me, is as soon as I said that, I experienced myself being blessed. By you and through you and with you. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be free of suffering. May all beings remember who they are. You are, always, have been, and will be, in the arms of an angel.